Well, of all the exciting highlights that we have from the Paris Masters tennis tournament this weekend, there's one that stands out above and beyond of both Federer's match against Djokovic, the incredible shot making from Khachanov in his final and his breakthrough win here. But this one, I think, takes the cake. That young Frenchman had no idea what to do with that ball. Throw it the back? Oui? No. Oui? Oui? No. À demain. Well, geez, that Paris Masters was the most fun it's been in years. I hope Guy Forget is very, very happy. I wonder why it was so much more exciting this year. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we will talk about the exciting results and takeaways from the Paris Masters. We'll talk about the rankings going into the final World Tour Finals, WTF, one of the most exciting events of the year and the last event of the tennis year. We'll read some of your comments and the latest breaking news from the world of tennis. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis, the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world. Oh my God, we've got so much good stuff. This is a big pile of tennis news right here in my very hands. I'm so excited to be here today doing the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world for you, the smartest tennis fans in the world, who oftentimes prefer Roger Federer. Because this is an exciting time of the tennis year. There's some confusion with the rankings. I was going to read some comments. I usually do comments later, but let me do one comment right now. Oh, you know what? Let me just do the biggest news of the day right now. This is from UK Reuters. Tennis. Nadal pulls out of ATP Finals. Djokovic to end the year atop of the rankings. And the comment I'm going to read is about the rankings because there was some confusion. I got to admit, even I was a little confused at first until I figured it out. It's pretty simple, but there's a thing with the rankings. If you watch closely on the live rankings before tournaments to see what points people have to defend, you might have been confused to see Roger Federer had 600 points to defend at the Paris Masters. But I thought Guy Forget was really upset because Roger skipped the Paris Masters last year. So we'll get into that in just a moment and read a comment that's basically just asking what the H-man went on with that. But first, Nadal is out of the World Tour Finals and reveals, it sounds like he's going to have a surgery. That came out of nowhere. That was a surprise. Nadal's pulled out of next week's ATP World Tour Finals in London due to injury. Novak Djokovic will end the year as world number one, having returned to the top of the rankings on Monday. I guess there was, if Rafa would have won the whole thing, he could have remained on top. And that would have been the only way to stay number one. French Open champion Nadal announced that an abdominal muscle problem, for those of you who aren't sports science majors, abdominal means a stomach problem, muscles under the stomach fat. Little fat on the Rafa stomach, but some. And here's the new part, an ankle surgery has forced Rafa to pull out of the season-ending event. Unfortunately, I had the abdominal problem in Paris last week. Also, I have an issue in the ankle joint that has to be removed. Operating room today. 17-time Grand Slam winner wrote on Twitter. This way, I hope to be in full condition for next season. Finished Rafa. I changed voices. So, very sad for Rafa fans out there. No one really expected Rafa to play either of these tournaments. He was in the draw at Paris, and he pulled out last minute with the abdominal injury. What, Mr. Goat? Do you hear that? He's stomping around. Are you going to come up here? Make up your mind, Mr. Goat. That's Mr. Goat, the talking tennis cat, co-host of the show. Biggest tennis fan cat in the world. So like I was saying, we never expected Rafa to play the World Tour Finals, or at least to do very well there. He tends to be beat up by the end of the year. Pretty much everyone on tour has this problem, but Rafa, who plays such a brutal style of awesome tennis, of course, the body takes a little more. Plus, it takes a little more of a beating, but not just the way he plays, the fact that the guy's always winning. He's playing more matches than your average tour player, that's for sure. That's one of the things that makes the big four players. I know Andy Murray. I call him 1% Murray. He doesn't have nearly as many majors, so it's hard to see him as one of the big four, but he's consistently been at the top and been a contender at the majors and all of the Masters. So, you got to give him a lot of credit there, and he has won some majors, made a lot of Australian Open finals. One of the most impressive thing about those guys is they win so many matches that they're just playing tons and tons of matches, and you see it's had its effect on Andy Murray. It's obviously had its effect on Nadal, who's been kind of doing like what Roger does for a long time now, where Rafa takes these breaks just to not aggravate things that are kind of problems that could turn into injuries. So maybe you could argue Nadal's been a little smarter with the scheduling. On the bright side, American John Isner will take 32-year-old's place in London when the finals get underway. Kei Nishikori also been drafted in to replace Argentine Juan Martín del Potro, who pulled out due to a knee injury. And the good news for the Joker faces out there, and you know, as Joker, you can't be too upset about him losing against Khachanov. Djokovic said he had flu-like symptoms going into the tournament. I think he still played pretty well. He's a little more emotional out there, a little more angry, a little more frustrated at times than we usually see the Joker. But not a bad result, and really, you'd rather win the World Tour Finals than Paris. So Djokovic, we could argue, is going to peak at the World Tour Finals. We could say the same thing for Roger. Clearly, both of those guys are there to get the rhythm on the indoor fast tennis courts, and World Tour Finals is going to be even faster. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I will tell you this, the Serbian Djokovic now becomes the first player since ATP rankings introduced in 1973 to end the year at number 1, having started it outside of the top 20. Big-time accomplishment from Joker face Nole. So congrats to Nole, who just looked so far out of it. It wasn't the fact that he was outside the top 20. It's just the fact that he looked like he couldn't get anything going in his game, changing the serve motion back, all that stuff. He got the elbow healthy. He got the serve back. When you can hold and you got a return game like Djokovic, you're going to win tons and tons of matches. This comment is from MR on YouTube, or Mr. on YouTube. Can anybody tell me why Fed started at Paris with negative ATP points when he didn't even play there last year? Why does it say he's down 240 points instead of being up 360 for being a semi-finalist? So Roger has 600 points from the World Tour Finals last year. Of course, he lost to David Goffin in a shocking upset in the semifinals of the World Tour Finals. Down 240 because he picked up 360 from Paris. Deduct the 600. That's a net loss for Roger of 240. Basically, the way this works is because you can't have World Tour Finals points qualify you. So we saw Grigor Dimitrov, my personal friend, who there's a story in my pile of info here about Andre Agassi, how he was there coaching him. I don't know why anyone would hire Agassi after what he did to Djokovic's game. Obviously, Agassi's a legend of the game, so maybe, things didn't work with Djokovic. Djokovic had all the injuries. Agassi himself, to be fair, I think said that Djokovic, you need to get a surgery long before Djokovic did get a surgery and stopped trying to play. So, Mr. on YouTube, we will go to the rankings. So this is the ATP, this is the live rankings website that I'm sure a lot of people, big tennis fans use. The casual tennis fan probably not in tune with this one. Probably not visiting this website, but oh, here he comes. Don't step on the microphone button. Oh, he's close. Psst. Welcome, Mr. Goat. You did it without turning off the microphone. So you can see here, Grigor Dimitrov, he lost all of his points this week. 1,500 points. That dropped him to 19, but he was inside the top 10. So the idea behind that is you can't qualify for the World Tour Finals with your World Tour Final points from last year, so they're gone the week before rather than the week after the finish of the tournament like we see with most tournaments. So that's what the confusion was. And usually when you look at this live ATP rankings website, it shows you what people have to defend that week at the tournament that's currently going on. So it was very confusing to see negative 600. What? Roger was in the finals of Paris last year? No, he wasn't. So that's all it was. Everyone lost their points this week at Paris Masters. So Roger going there kind of offset the loss. Instead of losing 600, he lost 240. So that's a smart move. Obviously, Roger would have liked to win it, but I don't think it's about winning at Paris, even for Djokovic. Djokovic is getting points to lock down number 1. I'm sure that's part of it, but I think most of it is just about peaking for the World Tour Finals. You got a whole week off this week to rest, recover, get ready to do your very best at one of probably the 5th most important tournament of the whole year, after the 4 majors, of course. What's that? Mr. Goat says he enjoys watching the World Tour Finals more than the French Open. So for him, it's the 4th most important tournament of the year. I kind of agree with him. I don't know. the French Open is a very special place. So the new rankings are like this. Of course, everyone who's qualified, Rafa's not going to play, can add 1,500 to their total. Since Rafa's not going to play, if Roger Federer were to win the World Tour Finals, that would put him at 75-20, just 40 points ahead of Rafa, which would be a big deal because then it would give us the possibility of a Joker and Roger Australian Open final. Comment below based on what we've just seen in this semifinal, and I'm going to talk more about the Federer-Djokovic match because I think that means more for the overall tour. These guys are on top. They rule tennis. Much respect for Khachanov. Very impressive win over Djokovic. There was one point where Khachanov, he's serving 1-2 and serve and saves 3 break points. Love 40 down. Ends up being broken anyways, but then there's a stretch pretty soon after that. I think Djokovic is up 30 love, serving 3-1, and this looks routine. You know, it's real easy for a next-gen guy like Khachanov to kind of feel like totally defeated at this point. You're about to be down 4-1 in the first set. This looks like a routine Djokovic, beat down of younger players, lesser-ranked players. Khachanov obviously has been pretty good. He's very impressive at the U.S. Open. I even thought he was impressive when he played Rafa at Wimbledon. Anyways, so in that point, it was down 3-1, 30 love, Djokovic serving. Khachanov wins 4 points in a row to break Djokovic, and then I think he wins 4 in a row to hold it love, and then 2 more to start off 30 love on the Djokovic next serve. So 10 points in a row. Some of those points were incredible. I'll show you this one. This is the one point where I thought, well, here goes the point streak. There's no way Khachanov can win the point from this position, and hits this incredible shot.
He's missed it. And 4 points in a row for the young Russian. Oh, no way!
But I'm telling you, if Roger wins World Tour Finals, he's 1-2, Djokovic, Federer, Australian Open final possibility there. That's what I'm looking forward to. Even the World Tour Finals, as big of a tournament is, it's more about trying to figure out what will happen at the Australian Open. They're 2 of the fastest courts on the tournament. And I think this is a great sign. Comment below, based on that match, what do you think will happen if we were to see Djokovic and Roger play on the much faster surface? The Australian Open plays about 12% faster than Paris. And I'll show you that in a moment. But first, let's just finish with the rankings while I have it up. Delpo's there at 5,300. Obviously, he's pretty much done for the year. Alexander Sasha Zverev, who got absolutely beat down. Now, I've heard he's got some kind of injury issue he's dealing with right now, but still, I haven't been impressed by Sasha Zverev all year long. I wouldn't be surprised because when he was at the point where when Federer was the age of Sasha, Federer had a lot of doubters and hadn't broken through yet. So I'm not going to write off Zverev, but he still hasn't shown it to me yet. The way Khachanov just absolutely manhandled, injury or not, Zverev should have been able to play good enough to avoid being completely destroyed. But again, I don't know how injured he is, so I don't want to say that. But very impressive, and just more bad news for the Sasha fans. Kevin Anderson will be there. Marin Cilic will be there. Dominic Thiem will be there. Nishikori and Isner at 9 and 10 will be at the World Tour Finals. And guess who? Khachanov. You never know what could happen. He's going to get that alternate spot, and so is Borna Coric. Coric, Khachanov, Tsitsipas. They've been the most impressive of the younger players recently in the last, 4 months. Those are the guys you point to and say, okay, maybe they can really do something serious next year. But again, winning a Paris Masters, even the way he beat down some big players, the way he kind of beat down Djokovic, Khachanov did, it's not enough to make us feel like they're still going to be able to stop the big guys, the big 3 at the majors. And there's Tsitsipas at 15 making his move. Danny Medvedev, who beat Tsitsipas in that Basel match they had. It could be a rivalry one day. He's another guy I've been pretty impressed with, Danny Medvedev. And of course, there's Grigor Dimitrov behind Milos Raonic and barely ahead of Khachanov. If you would have told Dimitrov this a year ago, I think he would have been pretty surprised to be just barely ahead of some guy named Khachanov. My biggest takeaway from the Federer match against Novak Djokovic was that he would have won that match on a faster court. Paris is faster than a lot of courts on tour. It's an indoor court. Roger's going to love it. But it's still one of the slower indoor courts. World Tour Finals will be a little faster. Here is this speed chart we have. This is based on how the courts played last year. It's always slow getting these things. I wish I had something for you, how it played last week, but we don't have that data. Now you see Shanghai is on top. That's the fastest. And then right after that is the Australian Open, almost just as fast as Shanghai. I think Shanghai was negated a little bit, though, because, at least for Roger, because he always played the evening match and the temperature dropped quite a bit, more so than last year. This year in Shanghai, so it slowed down play. And remember, the roof was always open. When Roger had that beatdown of Rafa last year at Shanghai, the roof was closed. And I think the weather was actually a little colder that day. I went through the weather data during the Shanghai tournament. I wish I kept it, but I'm pretty sure the weather was colder than it was the whole week in Shanghai on that day, but they closed the roof, so that kind of takes that out of play. Colder weather slows down the ball. Roger doesn't get the full advantage that he would get from the fast court. The Australian Open, you don't have to worry about cold weather. Look at that, 42 versus 37.5 at Paris-Bercy. That's about, I think it's 12% faster. That means every time Roger strikes a ball off of the bounce, 12% faster at the Australian Open than Paris-Bercy. So I think the 12% thing, that's a big difference. I think a lot of those shots that Roger hit, that Djokovic was able to get back and play and be in the point still, that changes when the court plays that much faster. And now, of course, if Roger's off, it doesn't matter. But if Roger is the offensive machine that we saw in this match, almost perfect serving from Roger Federer, some of the best numbers he's had. It's so funny, he brings it against Novak Djokovic. Talk about being clutch. Some of the best numbers from Roger in months, really, in this match. Now, I know Roger, not clutch, double fault in that final set tiebreak, maybe just a little bit worn out mentally from saving 12 break points. That was incredible. Some of those break points that Roger saved, a little bit lucky. I remember one forehand that Djokovic challenged that just barely caught the line. Just incredible stuff.
Federer survives by a matter of millimeters.
And one challenge remaining.
You make the court faster, there's more easy points off the serve. Djokovic will get less returns in play, or at least they'll be shorter and easier to put away. In the rallies, everything Roger Federer does on a faster court is more damaging. That's why historically he's not done as well at tournaments like the French Open, where super slow. It takes the sting out of his offense a little bit. I think this was a great sign. Even if Roger doesn't win World Tour Finals, as long as he has a respectable showing there, winning it, Grigor Dimitrov won that last year. Didn't do a lot of good for him going into the Australian Open. But for Roger, I think that belief, that desire, that will to compete and beat the best players like Djokovic and win the biggest trophies, to see what he could do there, knowing that the court is better for his game at the Australian Open. He's defending champion. Great sign for Federer fans. And one thing I'll point out, though, I think the slower indoor court kind of helped Karen Khachanov against Djokovic. Djokovic, who's so good at taking the Rafa game, the defense of the Rafa game, and the offense of the Roger game, and kind of putting together into this hybrid game. The faster courts benefit Djokovic, too. Now, if he plays a pure offense person, he can get blown off the court. But Djokovic is able to attack you on a faster court like he did against Rafa. Remember the roof gate at Wimbledon this year, when Rafa and Djokovic played one of the best matches of the year. Djokovic greatly aided by those indoor-like courts at Wimbledon. Same thing to 2012 for Roger when they closed the roof. Murray had been doing well in that match. I think Murray won the first set, 2012 Wimbledon final. Either way, once the roof closed, Roger completely took over. Just to give you an idea of some of the amazing serving, let's show you a roll one clip. But first, look at this. I can't remember if this was a break point Roger saved. I don't think it was, but I remember this is an ace Roger Federer hit that Djokovic challenged, and you could see how frustrated Djokovic was to see how the serve was barely in, but definitely an ace. When I was at Tennis Fantasy Week with tennis teaching guru and tennis genius Peter Freeman, Johan Kriek, two-time Australian Open singles champion, told us that even if the ball is 99.9% out, it's still in. Roll this clip. This is just one serve Roger Federer hit that knocked Djokovic over.
It's been a little scrappy.
Novak, you okay?
What a serve. So let's take a look at some of the numbers from the tournament really quick. Roger and Novak's match numbers, all the numbers from all three sets averaged together here. Roger with the one break, only 2 chances, way to convert on the one. Djokovic had 12 chances. Roger, 17 aces. This is one of the best serving days for Roger. I believe Roger had something crazy like 96% win. I think he only lost 1 point on first serve against Nishikori. in Paris. So the serve is getting better, and maybe that has something to do with the hand/wrist injury that Roger had been kind of hiding. 8 aces from Novak Djokovic, 2 doubles from Roger, came in very bad times. First serve percentage, they matched each other. Roger had had first serve percentage for several matches, several weeks now in the 50s. Low 50s, 67. Way to come up with it. Djokovic matched him at 67. They both won 74% in. This was such a close match. It really could have gone either way. That's why I'm so confident that the 12% faster court on a day where they both are playing about this same level, Roger, it makes that much difference to where he wins. Djokovic, funny enough, more on second serve, winning 76%. That's been the story of Novak Djokovic lately. He's just been so good on both first and second serve. Of course, he's always great at returning serve. Roger, all year long, when he's over 50, he's doing well. His average has been 60. It's really been the fact that there's been less first serves going in. That's caused problems for Roger in a lot of matches. I think that 54% number, though, against Djokovic, best returner in the world, that means Roger was pretty good on second serve that day. And on a faster court, if Roger serves just the same way, I think that number goes up a little. Now, numbers dramatically dropped for Djokovic on second serve, winning 50% against Khachanov, 70% on first, 61 in. Khachanov, a ton of first serves in, winning more on first serve, doing the same, winning 50% on second, and saving almost all the break points he faced except for that one early in the first set. Now, if you'll remember back at Cincinnati, Craig O'Shaughnessy, the stats guru, he put together a very interesting piece that I've talked about in the past that showed in the Cincinnati match, the match was entirely won by the player who was able to do the most with the very short points, the points that were only 1 serve, 1 return, or 3-shot rallies. So I just wanted to show you this from the stats in Paris. This is total, everything averaged up. Under 5-shot rallies, Roger had a pretty strong advantage there. 5-9, over 9. Roger didn't do as well in those points. And again, more evidence to me that on a faster court, we're going to see more of the points in the match under 5. And Roger he's already doing better here on this surface. So I think Roger Federer, a lot of potential to do even better on that surface of Australian Open. It's going to be really interesting because everyone knows that Djokovic loves the Australian Open. It's his first major in 2008. He's won more Aussie Opens than any other major. It's his favorite. But since 2016, since Djokovic was hurt and Roger came back and won 2 of them in a row, the Australian Open is considerably faster than it used to play. If it is fast again this year, that will be so interesting to see Djokovic at his favorite tournament against the guy who does the best on the fastest courts for the last 20 years. Now, another thing you'll see here is the RPM for the match. Djokovic more RPM on the forehand side, but Federer just a little ahead on the RPMs on the backhand side. And that's because Roger was totally going for that up-the-line backhand. I'm going to roll a little compilation I made for you of backhand up-the-line shots from Roger. This is the stuff that everyone fell in love with in 2017, particularly the first quarter of 2017, Indian Wells, Miami, the Australian Open. This was really the fearless backhand that had been missing in Roger's games, seemed like forever. It was back in this match. He did it against Nishikori as well. He did it against Nishikori and Basel. But to see Roger do it against Djokovic was very impressive. And I think that's why you see the RPM rate a little higher. Early in the first set, I noticed Roger would kind of slice Djokovic to short on his backhand side, kind of off the court. And then, of course, from that position, all Djokovic can do, it's almost impossible for Djokovic to go backhand down the line, so he kind of took that shot away from him. That was a good tactic from Roger. So Djokovic would kind of have to roll it cross-court against someone who doesn't come to the net or someone who doesn't step in and take a ball really early. That's plenty to get Djokovic right back in the point, looking to win the point. And Roger absolutely wouldn't have it. And he didn't hit it sharply in the beginning. You would see instead of going straight up the line, the backhand from Roger would kind of curl back to the middle and a little slower, a little safer. To really hit a backhand up the line winner, you got to have a good snap on it, and it adds a little topspin. Roger was definitely doing that with more topspin on his backhand than Joker, and that's why we saw so many of these beautiful backhand up the line winners from Roger. Check it out.
More of the same as far as he's concerned here. This gives you the green light to
Low 15.
even attempt those sort of shots.
Nothing. Merci.
Did not see that one coming. Might think there was a bit of pressure there, but so relaxed through the backhand. And a stunning backhand up the line.
30 long.
One other thing that I always see in Djokovic matches, and this, my Djokovic theorem that I came up with, what was it, like 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago, something like that. One of the first videos I put on YouTube talking about the pro tennis game was my theory that Novak Djokovic is just puzzled, befuddled by all the love for Roger and Rafa, but Novak doesn't get so much love. In fact, sometimes, depending on who he's playing, it seems like the crowd doesn't like Novak Djokovic. I think this really hurts Djokovic deep down, and this is emotional weight that Djokovic has to carry with him every tournament he goes to. Sometimes he's kind of a crowd favorite, and everyone appreciates what he does, but when he plays Roger and Rafa, it's so obvious that everywhere in the world they totally pull against Novak Djokovic. So here is an echo in the tennis world that started right here at Coffee Break Tennis. In a recent interview, Annabelle Croft said it gave an insight into the kind of things that go on behind the scenes, the way he plays. What channel is she on again? She's a tennis pundit on one of the European channels that covers tennis. I can't remember. Comment below if you know. Comment below if you're a big Annabelle Croft fan. Tell us why do you love Annabelle Croft so much? The Serb, Novak Djokovic, is enjoying the biggest success on the tour again, but the Spaniard and the Swiss still continue to be the most loved guys. In a recent interview, Annabelle Croft said, it gave an insight into the kind of things that go on behind the scenes, the way he plays, and I have seen it in his interviews. He's extremely articulate. He's very, very intelligent, talking about Djokovic here. You have to admire what he's achieved in the game. You don't get to these kind of achievements without a ruthless rod of steel that runs through you. Interesting choice of words. I also think is a little bit of why he struggles to really, really be loved. There it is. That's the Djokovic theorem right there. Djokovic always says it himself. He can't understand why Roger and Rafa get the love and he is trailing behind them. I think that everyone agrees until Roger and Rafa leave the sport, Novak won't get the love. I don't think they're going to leave anytime soon. There's this kind of split personality there. Yesterday was very revealing, but it also reveals the tension he feels on the court. Even though we think he is unplayable and unbeatable at the moment, there's a lot of padding which goes on under the surface. Djokovic, who reached the final after beating Federer in the semifinal in Paris, is on a 22-match winning streak going back to Cincinnati Open, where he also beat Roger Federer. So comment below, what do you think? Do you think the Djokovic theorem is real? He keeps winning, but I feel like it's just an extra challenge that goes on top that makes it even harder, which is why we should really admire Novak Djokovic. I like the guy a lot. I don't like it when he beats Roger Federer because, admittedly, I have the Fed bias. That's my favorite player. It's what drew me to this great sport, tennis. I have to thank Roger for that. But I really appreciate what Novak Djokovic does. His game's pretty fun to watch. A beautiful combination of offense and defense. It's a great thing to model your game after if you're a young junior tennis player. Is it real? Is the fact that Mr. Goat is swatting that article on the ground, is the fact that Joker doesn't get the love really a big challenge? Comment below, I would love to hear. I had some other things kind of funny for today. I'll save it for another day. We're running out of time. But I will go through a couple more stories really quick. I got this thing about Dimitrov hiring Andre Agassi. We'll see if Agassi is actually going to be his coach or not. Fabrice Santoro loved watching Djokovic and Federer. 3 hours of pure happiness, Fabrice the Magician Santoro said. Let's read these ones because these are a little more interesting. Then we'll read your comments, and then we'll get out of here. Rafa and Novak say they are evaluating their schedule exhibition in Saudi Arabia following the international condemnation of the country's government. This is from last week. Both are assumed to be receiving a seven-figure sum for playing, but there have been questions about the political message it would send that would be sent by their appearances there. Remember, this isn't like just a tournament in Saudi Arabia. This is the King Salman Cup. All right, so the person who's being blamed for all the Khashoggi, and rightfully so. I mean, they've already admitted it. Saudi Arabia has. So if you're waiting for so the quotes here from Nadal, I had a commitment since 1 year to play there. I know something happened very bad inside, and my team. He's talking about the Saudi embassy in Turkey. My team is taking to them to analyze the things. I hope the things will clarify as soon as possible. Well, the things are clear, so it's. I mean, they're waiting. It's a tricky situation, but it is the King Salman Cup again. It's got the guy's name on it. They've admitted it that he was killed. I mean, there's really no more mystery to it. So very interesting. And the next story is a little bit funny. I hate to laugh when we're talking about something as awful as what happened to Mr. Khashoggi. Djokovic said, "It's unfortunate that we are both drawn into this right now. I'm aware of what's happening. It's sad, of course. I've always been trying to be very professional, respectful towards the people I have commitments with. We have to get more information on what's happening so we can make a rational decision whether it's good to go or not. Being respectful towards the people that I have commitments with." Right now, it's the Saudi government. That can look very bad, which is why it's pretty funny that Roger Federer almost trolled Novak Djokovic and Rafa Nadal with this latest story. This is from October 30th. Federer outclasses. This is from FoxSports.com. Now, they took it overboard here. Federer outclasses Novak Djokovic and Rafa with Saudi Arabia response. Roger turned down an invitation to play in a planned exhibition match in Saudi Arabia in December, which his rivals Novak and Rafa have committed to play in. Asked in Paris on Tuesday if he was previously invited, Federer said, "They contacted me too, yeah." The Swiss star was then asked why did he turn it down, to which Roger said, "I didn't want to play there at the time, so for me it was a very quick, easy decision." So Roger never, look, the training block is holy to Roger Federer. And like I said, it's so key to his success next year if he's going to defend his title at the Australian Open and get to 21. Roger has to shut it down. They play so much. He's got to shut it down, spend the time with the family during the holidays in December, and he's not going to go play an exhibition. He's got enough money. I don't think this is like a political thing that Roger did. It's not like he's condemning the Saudi Arabian government or what happened to Mr. Khashoggi. It's literally just, this isn't going to be a part of the Federer schedule ever. It doesn't matter how much money they offer. This is the holy training block Roger will be in. This is what he does to be as fit as he can be and as healthy as he can be going into the Australian Open, which is, I think, now more important to Roger than Wimbledon. Obviously, he'd like to win Wimbledon more because he has so many of them. He's building on his record of most Wimbledon titles won. So, kind of funny how the media, and even at the bottom, it says, Sports Illustrated Stanley K has also urged the stars to withdraw. Kind of funny how they took it and turned it into Roger Federer being even more of a superhero than he already is. You have to wonder what Rafa and Novak Djokovic thought if they even took the time to read and see that headline. All right, I'll put this in the bin for not the European UK-style bin, but the bin where we keep stories that we might bring back if there's not enough interesting stuff to talk about next time we do a show. So maybe we'll talk about that next time. Let's get to the comments. Oh, Mr. Goat is back again. He's restless. Feels bad for Novak. Felt bad for Roger for not winning, but me and Mr. Goat both know it was never about winning Paris. Mission accomplished for Team Federer. I sure do love this sparkling German water. Gerolsteiner. Mr. Goat, put these comments on the screen. From Spirota, who's been commenting forever. Thank you, Spirota91. Having just watched Federer against a pretty mediocre Fognini, I don't think he's close to the level required to beat in-form Djokovic. Still not convincing in the rallies. Point construction is a little better, but the execution isn't. Federer netting and hitting wide on too many points he's dictating. As for the Federer bias, this is your channel, Matt. You should be able to do what you like with it. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. However, I do think it clouds your judgment at times. So, Spirota, I say to you, I think this was the sign that Roger was just, he's netting a lot of errors, making a lot of errors, trying to find the rhythm, trying to find the timing, trying to get it so he can execute, peak when it matters most. You could say that he got it going pretty well, almost beat a pretty informed Novak Djokovic, even if he was blowing his nose on many of the changeovers. Alan Osborne. Matt, it's 100 times more fun to watch your show because of Fed bias. Keep it up. That's why I watch. On the flip side of that, this is from Yash. Yeah, I unsubscribed you because of the Fed bias, and due to the promised Nole US Open vid that never came, giving excuses about Masters and World Tour Finals was hilarious, and that was it. Watching this because it came up recommended, and I do like your style of speaking. Thank you, Yash. Just hope you were fair to all players' achievements. GL. Comment below what GL means. Just kidding. It's good luck, I think. Yash, I'm so sorry that you unsubscribed. Thank you for telling me you like my speaking style. I do have a... What kind of degree is it again, Mr. Goat? I have a college degree in communications. I am an expert in communications. What was it called? Bachelor's degree. That's the one I got. Not the doctor, and definitely not the one under it. Not that there's anything wrong with the one under it. What's the one called again, Mr. Goat? He doesn't know either. It's from Vinkat. Roger had a backhand plan for Nadal, which worked, and he needs to have a similar plan for Joker as well. Hopefully, he has one that he can execute at Paris World Tour Finals. I think he's got the plan. It turns out it's pretty much the same plan he had against Rafa, just maybe not the confidence in it throughout most of the year to execute this plan. Because when we see Roger trying to play that way, really aggressive, and then it's falling apart and he's making a lot of errors. It's very natural for even me sometimes to feel like, oh my gosh, is Roger finally too old to keep doing what he does? I think it's just so difficult to play like that all the time. And the fact that Roger can get it going at the most important times of the year at the biggest tournament, that's really all that matters. That's all he needs to do. If it gets better, or even if it's the same as it was at Paris on the faster courts at the World Tour Final, faster courts at the Australian Open, fingers crossed that they stay faster. I think we see that plan being executed very well. Elron Gardner, I almost didn't read this comment because he called my personal friend Grigor Dimitrov a dimwit, but it's a pretty funny comment. Dimwit Dimitrov hired Agassi in a package deal that included his barber. When Agassi tried to have his barber cut Djokovic hair, the Joker canned him. All right, one more, last one. This was a pretty good comment. This is from Believe Nothing. How do you say believe in German again? We'll just say no. Kennen Sie nicht? Nothing. Great name. I wish Novak can stay number one for another couple of years, but honestly, I don't think he'll be able. This year, he probably will. As for Fedal, they're not over just because Novak is back. I strongly believe those two, Roger and Rafa, will be able to keep up with the young guns, but I couldn't convince myself saying the same for Novak. He might have been beating a few next gens, but I don't think his game will be able to really break them. The old 25-plus regular players have always had psychological issues when they're against Novak. Not so much for the youngsters. They may be intimidated by his name, but after playing him a couple more times, they'll find out power, courage, and a bit of consistency will top the mighty Joker, unless the Joker evolves his game and played like the GOAT. Still debating on that. Since 2014 and onward, otherwise he'll finish sooner than the GOAT, even though he's 6 years younger. So this idea that Djokovic won't be able to completely dominate the next generation of young guns like he has done, like Roger and Rafa have done to, the guys in the Dimitrov age group. And we saw Karen Khachanov take advantage of that. He was able to out-hit Novak Djokovic. Stan Wawrinka has been able to out-hit Novak Djokovic. Juan Martín del Potro has been able to out-hit Novak Djokovic. Tsitsipas, who has a really big game. He's taller. He's a bigger guy than Novak Djokovic, able to out-hit Novak Djokovic. Maybe there's something to this. I have so much respect for the Joker. He's in the GOAT conversation. He is one of the three GOATmen. 3 horsemen? 3 goatmen? But this is definitely something to watch out for as we move into the future. So many people assume. This is the one thing I've had a problem with. And roll the music. We're going to get out of here. So many people have just assumed that since Joker is so much younger than Roger, he's going to easily be able to win 7 more majors is what it would take to get ahead of Roger Federer. I definitely think Novak will win more majors and will be a factor in tennis for a long time. But it's not so easy to just go and win 6 or 7 to take over the record, or maybe more if Roger can win more. 6 or 7 majors, you can't just give that to anyone. It doesn't matter how old they are. Thanks for watching Coffee Break Tennis. We may be back later this week to look at the World Tour Finals a little bit more. Maybe we'll read some old stories. Maybe we'll have news that Rafa and Djokovic pull out of the King Salman Cup in Saudi Arabia. I'm your host, Matt Bradshaw. We'll see you very soon. Thanks again for watching. I'm your host, Matt Bradshaw. He's your co-host, Mr. Goat, the Talking Tennis Cat. See ya!
Señores,